Hey y'all, so are you in a space today where the holiday season has just come upon us and you are completely drained? Like you were drained even before we got to this point just from your everyday occurrences, but now because the holiday season is here and you feel all of this weight, expectation, and possibility for the things that you're supposed to be doing. You want to create experiences, but you also want to buy the gifts. You want to make sure that your kids have everything they ask for you, but you also want to buy them what they need. Oh, and by the way, you want to bake the cookies and do all the traditional things that you did when you were a kid. And so now your battery is completely drained. Something that I heard on a podcast, but I also remember feeling this way and hearing this before whenever I was in a state of feeling drained, which I'm going to be 100% vulnerable with you. That's how I feel today and now because of all of the pressure that I've put on myself for this holiday season. It was a great reminder to hear when your battery is low, find what's draining it. And we always want to go to the things that seem the most obvious. So we'll say, well, what's draining it is my commute to work. What's draining it is the fact that I have to go. What's draining it is that my kids want me to do a million things for them and they don't appreciate me. What's draining me is my relationships. What's draining me is all of the chores that I have to do in the household and I don't ever have time for myself, right? Those are the most obvious things that are draining us. But often than not, what's draining you, much like your phone, is those open tabs in the background that you haven't closed because you thought they were going to be important someday, or because you still need it to be open, or because you forgot about that website you were listening to or looking at and the podcast you were listening to and the music. You've gotten so distracted by all of these other things that you've left all of these tabs open and you wonder why your battery is draining so quickly. And if it were a phone battery, you would run straight to it and plug it in. The reminder came to me this week from Jay Shetty's podcast, and I'm just going to tell you some things that I learned when I very first heard this and also pulled out of my archive whenever this podcast brought it back up for me. And the first one is you got to close your tabs. There are things that you need to keep open, and there are things that are just distractions. There are things that you're doing that need to be prioritized, and there are things that you're doing that you're telling yourself you need to do when you don't actually. There are things that you're going to come back to, and there are things where you can write it down and come back to it later. All of those things are draining your battery. If you don't know the tabs that are running in the background and they've been open for months, jot them down and close the tab because it is draining you. It is draining you. There's too many things vying for your attention open at the same time, and you're wondering why you feel so frustrated, overwhelmed, and you can't get to them. You got to close some of the tabs. How do you know which ones to close? Well, assess what windows are running in the background that aren't necessary. Sometimes we take these things on ourselves and say, I need to do this later, and I need to make this my priority, and I need to have this on my list, and I need to create experiences for my kid, and I need to get them these gifts, and you don't need to do any of that. You get to decide what type of holiday season this is going to be for your family. You get to decide if you're prioritizing all of the things that you're putting pressure on yourself to do, or if you're going to pick and choose a couple. Now, for me, I know that decorating the tree and baking Christmas cookies were some of my favorite things as a kid, and those are the two things that I prioritize for my kids. But then I asked them, like, oh, do you want to do this? Well, is that something we could do in January? Because we could definitely go snow tubing in January. We don't have to do it during the Christmas season. Is that something that perhaps they want but could wait for their birthdays in May? Yeah, perhaps. So we're going to close that tab. There are a lot of things that you are distracting yourself with because you've created expectations that you don't need to keep open. Go ahead and hit that X or swipe out, however you get out of the tabs of your life. Get rid of them. Some things that I use that really help me to discern, do I need to close some tabs? And what windows are running in the background that can absolutely be closed are, I weigh my capacity. If my capacity feels really low, then I know I got to close some things. If my capacity feels really low, then I know that some things have been running for far too long and I got to learn which ones aren't necessary for the moment right now, because some of them have drained my capacity to this point and I don't even have the gumption or just any like true internal intrinsic motivation to go do the things that I want to do because those things have been running for so long. So I look at that. I self-reflect. I determine my capacity. I decide what is actually draining my energy. Like, what are all of these things? Put them into buckets, put them into categories, whatever it is. But then I take the things that I need to save for later and I make a later list. I save take the things that I know I need to do in the near future and I make a now list. And I prioritize those things on that list so I can close the tabs. And if I happen to need those tabs and I'm talking metaphorically, but also actually, because if I happen to need that link, then I just put it in my list. Here's where you can look for that later. Here's where you can look for that later because it's draining my battery. The same thing is true of me and my physical body and my brain and all of my emotions and everything that I have only a certain capacity for every single day. This thing I need to do right now. I'm going to put it on the now list. This thing I'm going to save for later, and I'm going to save it with notes for how I'm going to do it later or why I want to do it later or whatever it is. So that I remember standing in my kitchen on a Saturday morning, literally spinning in circles and like my brain spinning in circles and my mind just going, I don't know where to start. Until I was like, okay, what are the things you're prioritizing that you're cleaning right now? Put those on this list. Okay, I need to clean this, this, and this. Something that I can do later when I have a longer break from, the work of life are cleaning out the closets, cleaning under the beds, and these sort of things. And when I was able to put them on a list for later and a list for now, then I was able to take them out of my brain and not feel so worn down by them. So today I just want to ask you, what's on your list? What's on your list? Have you made the list? What are those tabs that are open that need to be transferred to a list? What are some of them that you need to just close and take the weight of those expectations off of yourself so that you have the capacity to do the things that you want to be doing? Is it buying way too many gifts because that's not even what the season is about? Is it wanting to create way too many experiences and having to choose maybe 3 or 4 that you really want to do with your family? Is it understanding that it's not about what you do, but it's about the time that you spend with your kids? Whatever those expectations that you've put on yourself today, I just want to encourage you that they will remember the time. They will not remember that when they were 7, you bought them this really cool toy that they kept forever, but they will remember the time that you spent with them. They may not remember what every cookie they baked looked like, but they will remember the time you spent with them cooking. So figure out what those things are for you, and you have about a week left. But that week doesn't have to be full to capacity with all of the things that you have left to do. It could be full to capacity with you recharging your battery so that on Christmas morning and the couple of days afterward, you have the ability and the mental wherewithal to be able to play the games with them that you bought for them and have them do a fashion show with their new clothes and be fully present in their moment. This message resonated with you, go to my pages and like and subscribe. And also make sure that you share this with people that it might resonate with as well, because you'll never know how you could break someone free from the bondage that they're also experiencing. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.